Again, thank you for taking the time. I know we briefly talked about this proposal for the new young adult court or emerging adult court, as Judge Evans is calling it. And I know that you had some thoughts on that. So just kind of want to start with that. I know you said that you think that why don't we just modify what we have for adult court? What are your thoughts?
Well, and my initial thought about having this specialized court for young adults is first and foremost, how are we going to pay for it? I
Mhm.
understand the idea behind it and the motivation. Obviously, there's always ways we can improve the court system and our ability to respond what is needed in the community for individuals. Um, but my first fear as a public official is, are we going to mandate these courts, but yet not provide the resources for them to happen? But above and beyond that, my next concern, and again, I'm behind the idea of doing something to change people's lives, because if you change people's lives, make it so that they are, and not to sound too pedantic, but to get them to make better choices in how they conduct their life with relationship to their community and other individuals. If you're going to try and make them and it's put them in a situation where they can make better choices, you need to provide resources. You need to provide alternatives. Maybe sometimes think outside the box. But my concern is, I don't know that we need to start a whole new court system for this. The juvenile court system, being what it is in Illinois, started from an original idea in 1899, and Illinois was the first state in the union to have a separate juvenile court system. And the idea was that children aren't the same as adults, that we need to treat them differently because their ability to understand the nature of wrongdoing is different. And my fear is that we might be getting away with going and extending this to what's called young adult court. We're getting too far away from the idea of self responsibility, in my opinion. And people, I believe, part of our problem in our society today with some of the people behaving in ways that aren't acceptable for the rest of society is that people are too willing to absolve themselves of responsibility. And we need to have that. We don't need to give them more excuses for saying, oh, well, I can get away with this because I'm only 18 and my brain isn't developed enough. I think people from a very early age still understand the concept of right and wrong. And I believe strongly in accountability for your own actions. You are responsible for your own actions. Now, that being said, if we want to develop a space in the court system for individuals of a certain age to have perhaps some other resources that aren't available because of concerns of that nature, we don't need to create a whole new court to do that. We simply adopt some rules that if you are of at such an age to such an age, then in adult court, these additional conditions or options apply instead of starting a whole new court, which I think is going to cost more money. And juvenile court's a little different because the idea is we want to keep juveniles out of the public eye. We don't want to give them a record, don't want to stigmatize them by having them involved in criminal activity when hopefully we can change their life around so they're not acting in inappropriate ways as adults, and then that juvenile court record marring their ability to get jobs or whatever. But the other thing we have to keep in mind is our court system is designed so that it is open and to the public. In, for adults, we want so that we have the specific reason to keep juveniles sort of limited in those who have access to it, although media does have access, the general public does not. But we are not a country where these proceedings should be, or in my opinion, should be, and legally should not be, held in secret. Um, we want to be above board of what's happening to people in our court system, how they're being treated. This is not a country that's a tyrannical dictatorship where those things are done in secret. And so I don't know if what purpose, again, shifting to young adult court serves. Are we going to say that, well, we're going to treat this like juvenile court and take it out of the public arena? I certainly hope not. I think at a certain point, yes, you want to protect juveniles, but you want to accomplish this idea of transparency in the courts as well. So those are just some of the concerns I have.
So is just kind of hearing you out here, is it safe to say, or suffice what you've said, that you believe that there could be some changes and that there might need to be changes, but you don't think this is the best way to go about it.
That's fair summation, yes, for my lengthy explanation.
And so, what do you think needs to happen? What should we do if these people who are 18 to 26 don't have full brain development, and the researchers and the scientists are saying, they can't make the best decisions? What should we do? Should we change the way we're prosecuting them, or how? What are your thoughts?
Well, and that's a very simple thing. Prosecutors have discretion. We can decide, even though someone may have committed a violation, we could decide not to charge it. We could decide how to treat it. And a lot of people talk about how much power judges have in the courtroom, but in reality, prosecutors, I would argue, have quite a bit more power because they decide what cases get brought before the judge in the first place. Judge can't initiate proceedings; they can only rule on proceedings before them, and in certain legally structured ways. They're not free just to do anything they want. And prosecutors have the discretion whether even to initiate a case, what to charge, how to charge it, how to proceed with it. Um, and that's some of the issue that's going on today in other parts of our country as well, is that use of discretion. And hopefully you have prosecutors that use that discretion with common sense and wisely. That's the goal. And that's what the electoral process is supposed to correct if they don't. But in terms of the changes that should be made, can be made, I think we can expand legislatively some of the things that prosecutors are allowed to do and that courts are allowed to do in making sentencing decisions. So both of those areas could be expanded through appropriate legislation that is reasoned and thought out, and not rushing into changing just to change. Um,
What if this proposal was to happen in Macon County, and it became, the Supreme Court decides to go forward with this, or as Judge Evans is looking at, is taking to the legislature, um, would it work in Macon County, and how would it work?
well, you make it work. I mean, if the law is the law, and if you are required to do certain things, we do our best to adapt and to do what's required. That's where the issue of resources and funding comes into play. Macon County is one of the more forward thinking. As some people may remember, I was state's attorney previously back in 2000, 2004. And one of the things I'm proud to have accomplished was I was the state's attorney that instituted the idea of teen court in Macon County. We got it going here in Macon County under my prior administration. Um, and that is what we call a diversionary and alternative court, which diverts someone from the regular court system, hopefully with the benefit of them not having a criminal record, stigmatizing them, that sort of thing, but yet addressing the need to change behavior. But we have other alternative courts as well. We have what we call hybrid court, which is for DUIs and for drug offenders. Those with a drug problem, any number of offenses, a burglary or whatever. If treatment is the appropriate option to get them off their addiction problem, so that their behavior changes, so that they're not out there making decisions that lead them to criminal activity. That's really what we're trying to do. Sometimes the only thing you can do is separate an individual from society in imprisonment, because that's the only choice they've left us to make everyone else safe. But the goal really is to change behaviors so that we don't have to incarcerate. And so we've got hybrid court. We've also got mental health court, those mental illnesses that lead them to commit crimes. We also have a program called ARI, Adult Redeploy Illinois, which is a program for repeat offenders to try and give them a more community-based sentence, again, to change behavior. So like any of those, or like juvenile court, we could adapt. It's not like it couldn't be done. It just depends on what the structure is and the resources for doing it.
Absolutely. Anything else that you want to say on this topic while I have you? I think you've answered the questions that I'm looking to get answered.
Oh, no problem. I not that I can think offhand.
All right, Scott, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, and enjoy the weather.